All right, the music industry's brightest stars not wasting an opportunity to trash the president, turning the MTV Video Music Awards into a politically charged bash fest.
I'm looking at this like it's game day, people. But do not worry, because at this game, you guys are allowed to kneel. You can do whatever the hell you want. There's no old white man that can stop you. Do it. You never know what's going to happen at the VMAs. I mean, beefs pop off, bad language, people run to the bathroom and send out crazy tweets. It's basically like your typical day at the White House. In your face, Trump.
So why do celebrities keep wading into politics? Here to debate that is Democratic Strategist Rochelle Ritchie and New York City GOP Councilman Joe Borelli. Guys, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Joe, I want to start with you. This is like the ultimate safe space, isn't it? I mean, what's interesting about this is that you don't see these people engaging in much debate. They just go to somewhere like this where you can say anything you want and everybody cheers for you, and then they just go off the rails.
Well, first of all,
what'd you make of it?
The 90s called, they want your in-your-face joke back from Kevin Hart there. But this is the reality. I mean, when you have Rolling Stone previewing the VMAs with an article entitled, "Will anyone watch the VMAs this year?" and you learn that revenue's down 50%, viewership's down over the past couple of years, you realize that people are just tuning out because they don't want to be pontificated to by the celebrities that they just want to hear some music or see some movies.
Right. Rochelle, I was surprised to see, I mean, I like Kevin Hart. I mean, he's a funny guy. And I was surprised to see him wade into that because I thought maybe he would have been above the fray.
You know, he's a comedian, and I think that all presidents have at some point become humor for comedians. Right. I mean, this happened to Obama. This happened with George Bush. We remember Will Ferrell playing him on SNL, which was fabulous. I don't think that we really need to look at this as, you know, people are turning it off. I mean, I'm a little older, so I'm not really into the music they're playing, but hey, I like Cardi B, I like Nicki Minaj, so I watched it for a few minutes, and then after that I turned it off. But it wasn't because of necessarily the politics that were involved. I mean, he's Kevin Hart, he's a comedian. I mean, we were kind of chuckling. It's a little funny.
And you're going after a demographic of very, very young people, 16, 17 years old, that probably don't know a lot about politics but think they're liberal.
Right, but it's more than that. You're right. We should never, ever, ever stop making fun of our presidents and our elected officials, ever. Seriously. But when it gets into the part where if you support the president, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, and you're being lectured to. But yeah, I mean,
it did seem like, in her defense, it didn't seem like it was a bit softer than a lot of the award shows we've seen before.
Then we had some musical performances talking about
and we're going to talk about that right now.
So it got into the real nuts and bolts of politics, and if you don't basically toe the groupthink, you're out.
And this is it right here. This is Logic. He is, I guess, a rapper, and he has behind him a number of children. They're immigrant children. We don't know how they got here. We don't know the full story of all these kids behind them. And basically, you see that the shirt says "F the wall," and then we are all human beings. So he's making a statement about the wall, and of course, the family separation and all that. This was probably the most political moment of the night. Rochelle.
I would agree. And I mean, look, it's freedom of speech. It's freedom of expression. You know, we don't like it. Everyone doesn't necessarily agree with it, but they have that right.
Okay. All right. So that's the VMAs. And, you know, this is kind of like every time we have an award show, we analyze kind of the same stuff. Yeah. Let's move on to Cynthia Nixon, the Sex and the City actress trying to be the governor of New York. She has this plan for universal rent control, which, if you ask most people, would probably be disastrous for a lot of reasons. But she didn't have a lot of details about this, Joe, when she did it. She was with Jumaine Williams, a guy you know probably pretty well, who is he's a big housing advocate in New York City. Even he didn't have a lot of details to give on the specifics of universal rent control.
Right. Imagine the nerve of these reporters to ask, how are you going to pay for this policy? The truth is there is consensus over all economists that rent control is not working. You look at the four biggest cities, New York, L.A., San Fran, and Washington, D.C. They all have rent control, and they all have the highest rental rates in the entire country. You know, this is something that just can't be done. Democrats in 2020 have, no offense, become nothing but the party of bread and circuses, and it's all about what can they give out for free in order to attract some voters back.
Rochelle, who are you more comfortable with, Cynthia Nixon or Andrew Cuomo running New York?
You know, since this is, you mentioned Sex and the City, so since this is a proposal from Cynthia Nixon, it only seems fair to take a line from Sex and the City where Carrie Bradshaw said, in New York City, you're always looking for three things. You're looking for a job, a boyfriend, and an apartment. And so the latter obviously seems to prove true for New Yorkers.
Yeah.
I mean, rent in New York City in particular has increased 33% in less than 10 years, while wages have increased less than 2%. So people just simply cannot afford to live here, and they're being forced out of their homes. And you mentioned San Francisco. I mean, let's think about this. People in San Francisco that make $117,000 a year are able to qualify for food stamps, and I don't think that's the direction that we want, you know, New York State or New York City to go.
I agree. There's a problem. I don't think rent control is the solution. There's got to be some other solution, but I think that would only exacerbate the problem, as we've seen it happen in New York as well. You take 1 million apartments that are rent control right now, you take them off the market, it makes every other apartment more expensive.
Well, there's 2.6 million apartments just in this city alone. If you give each one of those dwellers just $100 in rental subsidy, you're talking about $3 or $4 billion a year. It's impossible.
And it gets exploited as well. Guys, we got to leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.